Let's get ready to rumble!
Both Lou Dibella and Bob Arum have basically, in a very crafty way, told Terence Crawford that he doesn't know his place. Lou Dibella saying Terence Crawford and Bo Mack are not going to get Al Heyman to open the books, and saying it in such a dismissive way. We're basically talking about a power struggle between boxer and promoter. Lou Dibella doesn't have a network deal. So what is it that he could do representing Terence Crawford talking to Al Heyman? He couldn't say, okay, Al, if you can't put it up, I can go to ESPN, I can go to Showtime. And look, no disrespect to Lou, he was used by Al Heyman to circumvent the Muhammad Ali Act a lot of times. When he tried to make a big move with Wilder and DAZN, what happened? Well, Al, Stephen Espinoza, Richard Schaefer and co., they shut it down. Shelley Finkel, they shut it down. It wasn't Wilder's decision, it was their decision. And Lou was thrown out of the PBC fold as a result.
No one's opening their books to Bo Mack and Terence Crawford.
What's the truth? This is 2022. Lou Dibella doesn't have no secret knowledge that a boxer couldn't obtain from a good solicitor lawyer or a good businessman. But before Terence spoke to Al Heyman, he was briefed up by whatever member of his team or who he hired. Ask for this and ask for that. Ask for this and ask for that. If you start making progress, you can call this solicitor lawyer, management, this person, or whoever's strategizing in the team, Bo Mack, wherever, But the fact that Lou was dismissing Terence and Bo Mack, two grown men who are not kids, Logan Paul, KSI, and Jake Paul, are going in meetings with important people. Wasserman, Eddie Hearn, Stephen Espinoza. Jake's name is on the actual promotional information. You can see it on BoxRec. What is it you're telling me that Terence Crawford can't talk to Al Heyman, and all you people agreeing with that viewpoint? What's going on here?
I'm going to do a deal where I'm going to think I negotiate something that I think is smart, based upon what I think revenue streams will be, based upon intelligent, educated estimates. And
I'm going to do a deal based on stuff that I think is smart, based on educated, intelligent estimates. So basically, Terence Crawford and Bo Mack are not intelligent enough, even if they're briefed up. Just like Lewis, Lou doesn't know everything about the industry. He has to consult people. But Bo Mack and Terence Crawford, even if they consult people, they're not intelligent. They're not smart enough. They can't process the information. They're just boxers. Terence Crawford has been a boxer longer than the likes of Logan Paul and KSI and Jake Paul, who are in the boardroom all the time. Terence Crawford has been dealing with boxing contracts longer than most pros in the game right now. He can consult people who can give him the right information on what to ask Al Heyman for. And like I said, I'm repeating my material. If it gets a little too deep, he can send them in themselves to probe further and try and extract what's required. When Sugar Ray Leonard turned pro, his trainer Janks Morton reached out to Mike Trainer, a lawyer. And Mike Trainer didn't know anything about boxing. He knew nothing. All he knew is that the contract that Don King sent him, which in 1977 was a fortune, 200 grand. But a closer look at the small print, Trainer, in a very diplomatic way, said this would leave Ray as an indentured servant. Trainer studied the game and came up with the idea, we will hire promoters on a one card, one event basis and do the promotion ourselves and keep 100% of whatever's coming in. I can only imagine he had the game shook at that time. Ray Leonard, for his whole career, never signed to no Top Rank, to no Duvers, to no Don King, to nobody. But when he worked with Don and Arum, it was all on a one event, one card basis. Hagler had a similar arrangement with Bob Arum. They never had no long-term agreement or nothing like that. And Arum was fine with it. So when Arum is saying
Crawford had no promoter, and in order to really make a deal like that, you got to go in with a promoter who is prepared to put up a big guarantee for your side. I mean, it was unfair for him to look at Al and ask for Al to put up a major guarantee.
He didn't ask Al for a guarantee, though, did he? And apparently, Errol Spence wasn't going to get a guarantee. Adrian Broner exposed that neither man is getting guarantees, Crawford or Spence. They can't afford the guarantees at the PBC. And look, let's not beat about the bush. Opening up the books is a metaphor for transparency. Terence Crawford isn't looking to see the everyday operations of what Al Heyman does. He just needs to know that he's covered for any liabilities on Al's behalf. That's all he wanted to see.
So given what you're saying, then a Spence-Crawford fight has no chance of happening as well?
None of these fights have a chance of happening.
That was in 2018, I believe. This is when he was calling Al Heyman the cancer, saying he won't make Crawford and Spence. So what happened to the cancer, Bob? Did it go into remission? All of a sudden, there's some fear on Al. These promoters are basically trying to deter fighters for looking out for what they can look out for themselves. They want to have it like the boxers rely on us for everything. They can't do anything without us. You'll get blackballed if you try and make moves separate from us. Well, that might work with them 360 deals they're signing at the PBC. But for all the shit you're throwing at Bo Mack and Terence Crawford that, oh, you can't talk to Al Heyman like Al Heyman is God. Well, Crawford managed to get a $10 million deal from BLK Prime for fighting David Avanesian. He managed to do that without Bob Arum, without Al Heyman, without Eddie Hearn or Lou Dibella. And that's what's really scaring them, I'm guessing. I'm sure Al opened up the books or gave transparency to Canelo for the Plant fight. I'm sure he did that. And that's obvious why he would do that. Canelo was the biggest draw in the sport. Al wasn't trying to open up the books, not because Terence Crawford was out of his depth on the negotiating table. Adrian Broner told us why. They can't afford the guarantees. Arum himself told us why. The man's a cancer. He doesn't want to make the fight. Floyd Mayweather told us, oh, we're just going to do in-house fights. We're not going to mess with the other promoters, when he was talking about Gervonta Davis. Errol Spence told us, you're on the wrong side of the street. Tim Smith told us, we can't make that fight because of piracy. They're going to illegally cop the streams. And Terence Crawford isn't a draw. That's why they didn't do it. That's why. That's why the books wasn't opened. They've never really wanted to make this fight because there's a good chance Errol Spence will take a beating. And Crawford, if he doesn't sign a long-term deal with the PBC, will walk off, be a free agent. He may work with Al again, but they're not going to have control over him like they want to have control over him. And that's why the fight's not being made, Lou. Not because Terence don't know what he's doing and doesn't know how to make intellectual estimates. Intellectual estimates of what? We're chopping these figures up all the time on social media. We didn't used to do that with the old school boxing. We get our Ring magazine, our KO magazine, our boxing news, and all we read about is boxing. You don't have some secret knowledge. We know how much pay-per-view that Errol Spence can do against certain opponents or Terence Crawford. We know this. Terence knows that he's not the A side. What the fuck is it you're talking about? I'm going to go in there and ask for something smart, intelligent gestures. No. That's double talk for, you're too dumb to do it, leave it to me. So you can get your cut and stay in business. But the truth is, when's the last time Lou put on a big card? We're having to ask, oh, well, Al, can you put one of my fighters on there, please? Or Bob Arum. Or Eddie. He can't do nothing without none of them. So he's talking shit. Terence Crawford has more power than you, Lou. He has more power than you. Did you see how Lou was acting after Cambosos beat Teofimo Lopez? He started on Eddie. Don't talk to my fighter. I'm the man and this and that. He was so up himself because he never had a moment like that for how long? And he resents Eddie for all them cards he's putting on in America where he lives. And Eddie's from London. He's an Essex boy, isn't he? Essex boy coming over here, taking all the business.
Who the fuck are you? Crazy.
Mike Coppinger told us why the fight wasn't happening. It had nothing to do with Terence or Bo Mack's business acumen. Nothing at all.
I am told that if it does happen now, it's going to get pushed into either December or January. And the issue, Max, I am told, is that there are disagreement in the contract over event expenses and basically transparency related to those expenses. Terence Crawford agreed to take the short end of the split and work off of no guarantee, and he wants to be able to just, have some transparency there related to it, since he's going to be working off of the net revenue. And so far, they have been unable to clear this up. It feels like Al Heyman is holding up the deal right now. He advises Spence. Spence wants it. Crawford wants it. And for Crawford to agree to work off of just a purse split shows you how badly he wants this, in my opinion.
Hold on a second. You mean to tell me, because anyone who follows the Hollywood or anything, there's no such thing as the net. It's all the growth. I mean, certainly if you don't have oversight of the books, right, approving expenses, or certainly at least knowing where all the money's going, no one would ever agree to a net. The fact that Crawford's you work off the gross. But if you're working off the net, then certainly if what you're reporting is accurate, then Crawford would be out of his mind not to insist on that. And you're telling me that that's what's holding it up, that Al Heyman, who's advising Errol Spence, is not giving Terrence Crawford oversight over expenses or giving him transparency to the books, of the books. He's not letting him take a look at the books. And that's why Crawford won't sign? Because that sounds to me, Mike, like a duck. That sounds like Al Heyman doesn't think that his guy is going to win and is ducking Terrence Crawford.
So let's take a look at super promoter Lou, who every boxer needs to talk to the gods of the game like Al Heyman. He was promoting Amanda Serrano, one of the top female boxers, easily top 3, top 4 best women's boxer, right? He was promoting her. The other day, you guys heard me saying, yo, Regis Prograis is one of my favorite fighters, man. One of my favorites. Love watching him. And a lot of people agreed with me. You had Regis Prograis and Amanda Serrano. Who got Serrano paid, Lou? That guy you hate so much, Eddie Hearn. He got her paid. And I was on Twitter and Ring IQ enlightened me to a post. Amanda Serrano is signed with Eddie Hearn. 2-fight deal. One will be for that undisputed fight, and then she'll go in to take on Katie Taylor in the next one, another undisputed fight. She signed with Matchroom, 2-fight deal. What about Regis Prograis? You had a talent like Regis Prograis, and it took Marv Nation to put up the money for his title fight against Sabata. Marv Nation. Where were you? Lou's out there talking like he's some big shot. And he used to be something in the game, but Lou needs to humble himself in 2022. You need to humble yourself, because you're not all that. Evander Holyfield, he says he has a theory why America isn't producing boxing stars. He's drawing comparisons to the level of coverage there was during his early career, stressing the importance of solid publicity to bring eyes to fighters, new eyes to fighters. He says, in America they don't show all the fights, so you don't get a chance to keep up with it. He remembers a time when boxing was on and that was the only thing you were going to see. It doesn't get the exposure that it used to get. He remembers when everybody knew who was fighting. He expressed the importance of boxing being exposed to young Americans to inspire the next generation of stars. He remembers watching guys that were 17 and 18 years old on TV. And once he saw that, he knew he had to work hard to get there. They're talking about his 1997 fight with Mike Tyson, which generated close to 2 million pay-per-view buyers and was the third highest grossing fight of all time. Well, content is consumed a lot different in 2022 than it was in 1985, around the time Holyfield turned pro. So, for instance, if we're talking about the UK, 18 million people in the UK, and it's a small country, watched the rematch between Eubank and Ben. 18 million people watching their fight in 1993. They just couldn't reproduce that today. For a start, there was only a select number of people who had satellite in the UK. So alternative viewing away from ITV on a Saturday night was limited. They scheduled it so it wouldn't clash with the football match of the day. Eubank and Ben, and then match of the day. Anthony Joshua makes more money than Eubank and Ben did back then because of the pay-per-view machine that he became. But he's not as popular as they were. He isn't. As popular with all them endorsements, he just isn't. He's never had 18 million people in the UK view one of his fights. These guys were like rock stars. Evander Holyfield himself and Mike Tyson, nearly 2 million pay-per-view buys. They've both been undisputed heavyweight champions, right? People want to see this fight. They were like superheroes, almost mythical. Let's get back to what Holyfield was saying. When he fought Mike Tyson, he was on HBO, Holyfield. Tyson was on Showtime. Tyson came out of jail around 1995. The whole world wants to see this fight. If there was a back and forth between HBO and Showtime on what network it's going to go on, we didn't know about it because there was no bullshit social media with Steven Espinoza and these fake YouTube channels fanboying for one side or the other, or fanboying for one network or the other. We weren't getting that. So HBO bet on themselves, and this is really betting on themselves. They let Showtime put the dough up, Don King promoted it, and Holyfield won. Boxers don't bet on themselves. Let networks and promoters bet on themselves. Let them put up all their collateral and lose their shirts. You don't bet on yourself. You take the best deal for the best money you can get. You have a short career. It's always biggest offer hosts. It's simple. It's simple. It's effective. It works. It makes sense to men, to pragmatic men. That's how it works. You give me examples of this betting on yourself shit. That's why American boxing is in the doldrums. After HBO bailed, that was it. The sponsors, advertisement, they don't want to fuck with boxing over there. They know it would have took a huge deal for HBO to get out of boxing. And that's because it was in a pit by the time they left. That same shit that Tim Smith was saying, why Crawford and Spence can't sell, the piracy, they're one of the reasons HBO got out as well. Like Holyfield said, you don't get to see all the fights. Well, you don't get to see them all on television, but no matter where you're located in the world right now, you get to see more boxing than ever. I see way more boxing now than I did when Holyfield was fighting Mike Tyson. Way more. And that does dilute the product. That's what it does. Let me tell you something, bruh. In the 80s and 90s, any boxing they put on, whether it was an ABA final or a 6-round British fight or a world title fight, Hagler and Hearns, it didn't matter what level. I watched every single bit I could. And I was recording all of it, so I'd watch it 2 or 3 times. Now, I've got stuff on DAZN that I haven't watched yet. Fights that I haven't even watched yet because I don't have the time. I still haven't watched Franco and Ioka yet. I've got fights loaded up in Watch Later in YouTube. I haven't seen them. There's loads I haven't seen. And I'm probably never going to catch them up. The Ioka fight was in Japan. And did you know, I can't remember where the receipt would come from. They didn't even look for an American broadcaster. It wasn't broadcast in America. They're not bothering with that. They don't care. Because they've got millions probably watching over there. The arena, more than likely packed out. They don't care. But a lot of Americans, I'm telling you now, a lot of Americans, a lot of British fans and a lot of European fans around the world were scrambling around looking for a feed to watch that fight. Don't get me wrong. If one of the networks reached out, they would have sold it. I have no doubt about that. But they weren't going to start begging for someone to purchase the fight and pay them a paltry amount for the fight. No, they just said, no, forget that. Like, I hear people talking about Bob Arum's still the best promoter. But when I look at it, right, the UK have always purchased the big HBO, the big ESPN cards, and even the PBC cards. But when I look at some of the stuff that ESPN put up on Sky, compared to what Sky or Box Nation used to purchase from HBO or Showtime, it's not comparable, bruh. It's not comparable. 2023 in the UK, there was one occasion when Sky, DAZN, Frank Warren, and Wasserman had a card on. Maybe Pro Bellum as well. All in one weekend from Friday to Saturday. You didn't get that in the 80s. There's just no way. There's just no way. So much boxing. Marv Nation purchasing Prograis versus Sabeda and putting it on Fight. Anyone know what the numbers were? Don't bother. I don't want to hear what the numbers are. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Before the streaming technology became adequate to do such things, and let's say before so many people had access to the internet, they wouldn't even been able to bid for a fight. You wouldn't have been able to bid for a fight if you didn't have a television network deal. The first thing the sanctioning body is going to ask is, where are you going to broadcast it? Look, unless there's an exceptional talent, and I think that's regardless of what country it is, I don't think it matters anymore. Boxing is a global sport. There's no more focus on, oh, well, when is the next big American guy going to come up? No, it's an open market. The stars can be created from any location on the globe. You know, Japan is a successful market of boxing. Viewership, full arenas. It's a successful market. Australia, even the Boxing Voice was saying, did they miss a trick not putting Charlo versus Zoo in Australia? Being that Zoo's dad is a legend, and then people turn up to watch boxing. If you was to say today, oh, there's going to be a stadium fight in the UK, and it's going to sell thousands and thousands, they'd be like, what, another one? A lot of British boxing fans, especially the younger ones, they don't know when they've got it good. Like, there's British boxing fans complaining, oh, we've only got Sonny Edwards, Tyson Fury, Josh Taylor, Lawrence Okoli, and Lee Wood. 5 men world champions. I tell you what, yeah? Find a country the size of this small island that has 2 or 3 world champions, if that's the case. Holyfield's a few years older than me, but I think Americans his age and my age, they can't believe that there's negotiations for an undisputed heavyweight title fight and they're not involved in it. They can't believe that, you know, the last 2 dominant heavyweights before this era here were from the Ukraine. There are no more Floyd Mayweathers. There will be no welterweight who competes with the heavyweight division from America. There will be none. I don't care if Spence and Crawford fight tomorrow. They're not going to displace the heavyweight numbers. Not right now. The whole Floyd Mayweather thing was an anomaly. Because for the most part, apart from Wilder, there hasn't been that type of heavyweight attraction in America since Holyfield, Tyson. That's well over 20 years. All the major investment is going to go into that heavyweight money, chasing that Joshua Fury money. You know, I'll include Wilder, even though when the DAZN deal fell apart, Showtime put up money for the Dominic Brazil fight to appease Wilder not taking that huge bag he left on the table. But they weren't going to bankroll the Luis Ortiz 2 fight. That's never happened to Anthony Joshua when he had belts. They bankrolled all of his fights. Sky bankrolled all of his fights for pay-per-view. Fury, all his fights have been bankrolled for pay-per-view. In fact, the prices are going up. When Fury and AJ fight, the prices go up. I mean, Frank Warren sold $500,000 against Derek Chisora, a fight the public didn't want. You got to say, congrats. You know, you got to look at the shift. One of the biggest fights in America last year was Golovkin versus Canelo. Well, which part of America do both of them come from? Both of them barely speak English. A Mexican and one from Kazakhstan. Name a fight on American soil with at least one American in the ring that was bigger than that. Remember that debate that Eddie Hearn sparked off, that Canelo versus Golovkin is a bigger fight than Crawford and Spence? And there was actually resistance. No, Crawford and Spence is the bigger fight. Well, make the fight. Oh, well, you know, they're going to pirate the stream. Terrence isn't a big enough star. Stop it, bruh. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Let me stop there.